Learning to do something new is hard, but perfecting what you've learned is the real battle. So if you're berating yourself over not being able to animate walking, I'd like to dispel those negative thoughts from your mind. Not just because walk cycles are very hard to make, but because they're never going to get easy to make. My mentor once told me no matter how good you get at animation, it never gets easier. It just gets more reliable. You're never going to make something stunning and spectacular overnight, whether you're a beginner or an expert. The difference between the two is that the expert knows they're going to get the job done no matter what. Walk cycles require not only an understanding of personality and acting, but a firm concept of anatomy and physics. I've been animating for years, and to this day I still struggle with walk cycles. I had to re-record this tutorial 3 times because I kept messing up the walk cycle, and this is coming from someone with 8,000 hours registered in Source Filmmaker, and I don't even know how many hours I have in Maya. This tutorial is here to guide you in the right direction, but you have to make that journey yourself. You may be thinking, what the hell, get on with it, you pedantic twat. I'm just letting you know ahead of time, tutorials are not a replacement for practice. But you're here to learn how to get good, so here's how you get better at walk cycles. Step 1. Find a reference. Record one yourself if possible. It's just a good habit in general to learn how to make your own references, even outside of locomotion animation. All you really need is your phone. Just make sure that you get a front-facing shot and a side-facing shot. Look over the walk cycle a couple of times. Step 3. Replicate what you see to the best of your ability. Do this over and over again, and you'll start to retain basic knowledge like how the hips move and how many frames a step should be. If you can make a routine of animating one walk cycle a day, every day, you'll see huge improvements within weeks. It all just comes down to practice, so stay on top of it and you'll get the hang of it eventually. So there it is, tutorial over. Oh, you wanted more? Well, I guess I can show you my workflow for creating a walk cycle. I recorded myself making a walk cycle at 3 in the morning. Recording was a disaster, but if you really want to see it, here you go. First off, we're going to get this guy in a more relaxed pose. Bring those arms in a little bit. Now that I've brought these arms into a more relaxed pose, I'm going to rig this guy here. Alright, we've rigged him. Now we can, move his hands up and down. We're not going to be animating his hands. In fact, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be locking his hands to his collar. That way, when we move the spine around, you can see his arms move with his spine. Next up is getting him in a more relaxed pose. Right now, his feet are too wide apart. You can see we're going to change that. When you take these, steps, you don't want your feet to be too far apart. Otherwise, it's going to look like a waddle almost. Okay, so next up, we're going to bring the hips down a bit, and we're going to move the feet out. We're just going to get him into a nice walking pose right now. We want the legs to be straightened out. We don't want to have any bent legs like here. Your walk cycle is going to look weird if your point of impact is, instead of straight like this, it's all bent. It's not going to look like your character has any weight to his steps. So we're going to have it more like this. Maybe I'll bring the hips back a little bit. And I want to straighten out this guy's spine because I don't like the way it looks. Alright, I like that a little bit more. Now next up, let's talk about the hips. Don't use the hip bone. I've said this before in an earlier tutorial, and you see here the hip bone causes these weird deformities when you rotate it like so. I prefer to animate with the pelvis, and what I'll do is I'll open up the drop down for the spine by hitting the plus button, and I'll hit lock rotation. As you can see here, the hip rotation looks a lot better. It doesn't cause these weird deformities like it did before. Have the hips just sort of rotate this way just a little bit so that we can sort of stretch the legs out a bit more. So a good way to think of it is whenever this foot moves forward, the hips will rotate in order to help it go further, if that makes any sense. So this foot goes forward, the hips are going to rotate like that. So we're getting these hips into a nice starting pose. Not quite done here though, as you can see. This foot is a little too peeled up off the ground, especially for for our contact pose. So we're gonna bring that back down a little bit. We don't want it to be so peeled off the ground quite yet. All right. Another thing, I don't like how uneven those hips are, so we're gonna straighten those out just a little bit. So we've got our starting pose for this walk cycle. This is where our walk cycle is gonna start and end. Now what we need to do is get everything in between those two poses finished. So first we're going to put him on a flat surface. It has to be completely flat. And just, there we go. Okay, that looks good. Okay. So now we've got him on a flat surface. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the speed of the walk cycle. So we're going to have our rig root selected. Place a keyframe right there, and this is going to be in your graph editor, and we're just going to let's go say 2 seconds. I think 2 seconds is fine. We're going to go 2 seconds in, and now we're just going to set the speed. So that means just moving this whole root forward. And one other thing, you can see it sort of smooths in a little bit. We're going to fix this by going here and hitting this linear tangents key, and that should straighten everything out. There we go. All right, yeah, that should work. Okay, so now I'm just going to put a keyframe on everything. We're going to unselect our root real quick, and we're going to set a keyframe. Right anywhere is fine. We'll have to work out. We'll work out later, you know, where the end frame is going to be. For now, we're just going to put that down. And what we're going to do is, watch this. We're going to go right to the middle, and we're going to find. We're essentially going to move where this foot is right now. We're going to move it back so that it's back here. So we're essentially beginning the process of walking. And we want to make sure that you see the foot doesn't move forward as it shouldn't, like that's moving too far forward, which means we need to pull it back a little bit on the timeline. All right, now that's moved too far forward. There we go. Now we can move it. We can move it forward a bit. All right, move it forward a bit more. So essentially, if I do this, there's not going to be as much sliding. There we go. That's good. That's good. All right, there we go. So that's where our first step is going to be. This is going to be our first step. It looks a bit messy right now, but that's fine. We'll work that out later. Right now we're doing what's called pose to pose. It's where or blocking, as you know, normal people call it. And that's essentially where, oh dear, that doesn't look quite right, does it? Well, that's fine. We'll just move this forward just a little bit. And then move this backwards. See, this is why I love doing things in blocking, at least for walk cycles, because you get to plan this stuff out before you get too far in. There we go. Okay, good. Okay, so now, and this is all happening on the same frame, as you can see. I'm going to work out a walking pose that's basically just this, but mirrored. Whoops. Like you see, it's just mirrored. I'm basically just mirroring these poses. Let's move that forward over there. Make sure everything's on the same key, and put everything in linear. There we go, and this is what we want to see. There we go. That is, well, I mean, obviously it's not good. This doesn't look quite finished, but this is what we like to see. There's no sliding. It's mostly static when it hits the ground. Okay, so we've got the main poses done for the lower body, and we're only going to focus on the lower body first because the lower body is what's going to help drive the upper body. So let's get the feet done first. First off, we're going to fix the way this happens, so you can see the foot just sort of starts coming forward here. That's not right. Again, I want to have everything sort of working on the same keyframe for as long as possible, so 1, 2, let's make that about 3 frames for this foot to come down. So this foot here is going to flatten against the ground, and this is going to be our down pose. And it's you can see it's the heel is going to stay planted in the same position. You know, it might be better if I make it 2 frames. There we go, that's better. Okay, so that's done. Now we're going to keep this foot flat until the pelvis passes it. Now for my down position, I'll just bring the pelvis down around here. Hello, this is me from the future. Don't touch the red arrow. Leave that shit alone. It will fuck up your walk cycle if you move it around. Your character should only be moving forward using the root animation. If you do any animation with the red arrow or you move the pelvis forward, it'll be additive to that root animation. It'll create these weird pops, and your parents will be disappointed in you, and then I'll be disappointed in you too. I'm not joking. If I catch you using that red arrow, I'm going to fucking hunt you down. Oh, I just fucking licked my mic there. Ugh. Oh, it's very important to remember that your animation is going to be looping every 10-20 frames, which means any errors or pops in your animation are going to appear very prevalent. So we got to watch out for that. Let's get this toe fixed real quick. So it's not going to move forward like that. Of course, you know, we're going to have it peel off the ground more naturally. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Okay, there we go. So there's the foot peeling off the ground. I'm going to go ahead and put this in linear because I feel like it's a little misleading with the spline. There we go. Okay, we see a little bit of foot slide there. So I might actually extend this just a little bit to here instead. There we go. Alright, now in our passing pose here, one thing I want to just get out of the way right now, this is where we want this leg right here to be straightened out a bit more. We're also going to move the pelvis to the side just a little bit, not too much, not too much. I think that's about right. In fact, we really should be moving the pelvis to the side around here. There we go. Much more natural bounce. Okay, so now we want to get the passing pose sorted. So this is our passing pose. It's where we're going to have the first foot, or the left foot, passing the right foot. Pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be just passing. So we want to make sure that it looks nice and clean. So you know, this is something that we all do instinctually when animating walk cycles. It's not necessarily realistic though. When you see this floppiness movement, realistically, when we walk, we conserve energy as much as we can. So, if you're going for a realistic walk cycle, your feet's probably going to be down here. And instead, you're going to have that big sort of peeling motion around here, which I think I might actually go for right now. Yeah, it looks like our pelvis is going to require a little bit of tweaking at some point. There we go. You can see I just added a little bit of an arc right there. Or a little bit more up and down because we're going to need to take into account that right around here on the second step, we're going to essentially be repeating the same process that we see here. Like I said earlier, we're going to be mirroring these poses, so we really want to make sure everything's essentially moving at exactly the same pace. So that means, around the same height, the hip shouldn't be moving down deeper in one step than the other. One foot shouldn't be going further than the other. Everything has to be, perfect, of course. So, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's get to copying the motion you see on this foot into, this foot here. So I'm essentially just going to replicate what you see here. So that's 2 frames, 1, 2. We're going to do the same process over here then. There we go, there we go. Okay, yes, I'm liking this. I'm liking this, okay. And you can see here in the beginning, this is a, whoops, nope, wrong fucking, there we go. You can see here, this is 1, 2, 3. That's 3 frames. Okay, so we're going to do the same over here. 1, 2, 3. And this is going to be 3 frames. Okay, so we got that foot sort of landing on time. There we go. Now, this foot right here, you can see it's a 1, 2, 3. So when this foot starts to go back, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. All right, there we go. Again, it's got to be, basically complete perfect mirror movements. Now for the pelvis, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now it looks like I actually messed up. I messed up the end pose. So you can see here, this first step is 17 frames. Okay. Second frame is going to be 17 frames as well. So that's going to be a total of 34 frames. Mine is a little longer than that. So let's just, oh, wait, whoops. Don't have the rig root selected. Everything else, though, move that in just a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Okay, now this is where we got to be careful because we want this to be the same amount of dip as with the as it was with the other steps. So it's there we go. Now I did copy the rotation because that's what SFM does. So you see that's obviously not right. I can just go ahead and tell this rotation animation to fuck off. There we go. Delete that. One more thing, you can see it's moving to to our left here. We don't want that. We want it to be moving other way. You can see it's still a little bit rough, but the general idea is there, and it looks decent. So we're gonna get all this worked out now. So there we go. All right, let's get that done. No sliding over here. That's not good. We can't have any sliding. Looks like this one's a little too over peeled. So we're going to rotate that forward and move it in just a bit. And once again, we're just going to see how many keys that is. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7 keys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. Beautiful. Going to repeat the pose that we have here. There we go. Like I said, when you're walking, you tend to keep your heels very close to the ground to conserve energy. You don't keep them too high. You're not stomping around. So that's why I'm tweaking this just a little bit. Making sure that it doesn't look too much like it's being lifted off the ground. And you can see the foot is fully extended. I actually think I'm going to go ahead and, whoops. I'm going to go ahead and bring that forward just a little bit. Oh yeah, there we go. I might, despite what I said, just bring this up a little bit higher. And we're just going to repeat the same sort of pose right here. Bring the toe down a little bit. All right. Foot position looks fine. Let's make sure this is all flattened out and not like standing out or whatever. There we go. Okay. Great. Okay. And another thing I want to do real quick, I want to give this a little bit of rotation. Just a tiny bit, just to show it sort of moving in a three-dimensional area instead of just having the foot move back and forth, back and forth. Because, a walk cycle might look great from the side, but if it doesn't look good from the front, then is it really a good walk cycle? No. Okay, so let's see what the foot does on this foot here during this walk cycle. You can see it peels up, causing this sort of angled foot right here, and if we move over here, it's not quite the same. So it's like I said, we really want to make sure this is, as accurate as possible, as precisely mirrored as we can. So we want to make sure it looks something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and put a key or a bookmark right there and a bookmark right here. All right, what I'm seeing here is that this one's really rotated forward. What I could do is I could just lift it off the ground a little bit more and have the toe closer to the ground. There we go. That's good. That's good. Okay. Much better. Much better. Next up, you can see 1, 2, 3. This is this pose right there. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to replicate that. Oops, that's not 3 frames. There we go. That's 3 frames. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, gonna move this over here. 1, 2, 3. Gonna move this over here. Again, I'm trying to compare these poses, make sure that everything looks similar as possible because I want the first step to look like the second step. We can't have any outliers or anomalies. Okay, there we go, there we go. All right. Now, let's just go ahead and get a basic idea of how this all looks. First off, we're going to spline everything. Then I'm going to take these contact poses here. You can see where everything's supposed to be, linear. And we're just going to turn those into linear. And everything else is going to be smooth and splined. Not that, because then it'll look like there's a foot sliding when there isn't, which we do not want. We don't want that. No, we do not. All right, cool. I like it. I like it. I think it's not too bad. Of course, you can see there's a lot to be desired with these, with the pelvis movements. So let's go ahead to get to work on that. So when his foot comes down like this, all of his weight, since this foot is being lifted off the ground, right? This foot is off the ground. So all of his weight is being put on this foot right here, which means all that weight's going to travel up his leg, and it's going to push his hips up like this. We don't want to move this too much because typically you see those larger hip movements in, larger characters. We just want to make a nice and subtle difference. Like, there we go. There we go. We're going to do the same for the other hip, and you can see I'm actually sort of pulling the hips out. Whenever you see they rotate like this, we want to, counteract that movement because you can see uh, his head moves to the side. We want to keep the head sort of in the same position, more sort of centered, because this is a hip movement, it's not a whole body movement. It's just the hips. Let's make sure this is nice and splined out. All right. And one thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to, real quick, when I'm just going to get, the part of the animation we're looking for here. There we go. Gonna go ahead and smooth the rotation down a little bit because it feels a little poppy to me. That's a little better. Yeah, I like that a bit more. Okay, so there we go. That's good. That's good. Now remember, if you smooth anything, then it'll just revert whenever you hit the spline key. So you don't want to do that if you've smoothed everything down. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so there's that done. Could work on the knees a little bit. These should be pretty simple and straightforward. We want to keep these from, you see that sort of like crazy pose like that. We want to keep them. We want to keep the knees sort of straight. We want to keep them straightened out. So this is a little too far inwards. Let's keep it like that. There we go. Let's make that happen. I might just overall smooth the entire thing here. Just smooth that in general. Okay, there we go. We're good. We're set. We're set. I always like to zoom in on the feet and make sure everything looks fine here. Like if I were doing a shot of just these feet, would that look okay? I mean, obviously it needs some polish, but I think it looks fine conceptually. We'll get more into polish later on. Right now we want to get the actual, body animated. We've got the lower body done. Now let's work on the upper body. Like I said, I'm not going to animate the hands. I'm going to save that for after we finish with the spine. Then I'm going to animate the spine, and then I'm going to animate the arms in FK. So let's get working on the spine. Now the upper body, or a good way to think of this is the shoulders. Oh my god. Now a good way to think of this is the shoulders will actually twist in opposition to the hips, right? So you can see here where our hips are all rotated like this, we're going to have our upper body twisted like this just a bit. And one thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to lock the rotation of the head. Just drag that inwards. There we go. There we go. The head is now locked in rotation. Oh yeah. Look at that stride. So I'm going to rotate the spine like this. And then you can see, there we go. It'll twist like so. I'm going to have this spine, because we want to have the spine sort of hold its position for a moment. Just a moment, all right? Not too long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, now I want to make sure, again, we want to make sure everything's equal in timing. So let's move this over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Oh, yeah. Because, again, you got to remember, this has to loop, right? Like, it's cool if it looks, if this segment looks good, then cool. But it has to look good when it loops as well. If you, over animate the upper body and it looks out of proportion, because remember, the upper body is going to move in reaction to the lower body. So if you've over animated the upper body, then it's going to look weird because the lower body is just moving around normally. So just remember, the shoulders twist with the hips, right? They twist in opposition to the hips. So you don't want to make one twist more than the others twisting. All right, I think we're about done with the core body here. Next, we can get into, I'm thinking we can just start working on the arms. Alright, so before I do anything else, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this guy and copy animation sets. Don't worry about that warning, it's fine, doesn't matter. And I'm going to hide this scout completely, like his selection and his visibility. Going to click on both those icons. So we're going to, click on him and you can see he's exactly the same as this scout, but he doesn't have any locks on him. That's fine. That's normal. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to unrig. We're going to detach this guy's rig. That's really simple. You just go to rig and detach rig. Now, I've probably actually cut that part out because of how long it might take you to detach your rig, especially if you're on a lower end computer. So now our scout is in FK, or forward kinematics. Now, the great part about this is, like I said, you can animate the arms just swinging back and forth like this, and that's what we're going to do. But first, and we don't want to touch anything else here. You see all these, all this stuff. Don't touch any of this. This is all your animation from when you had the model rigged. So if I were to go, let's save real quick. If I were to go hit M, look what happens. It just fucks up the whole animation. So don't place any keyframes on anything that isn't your arms. Right, that's all we want to animate here. Next up, I love using lock rotation. It's such a useful tool. Lock rotation, and we can now get working on the arms. You see, there's a little bit of animation here. What we can do about this is just select all that animation basically, and you can use playhead. The upper body's gonna oppose the lower body, so we're gonna, when this foot here is forward like so, this arm is going to be a bit more backwards like this, and the other arm is going to be forward like so. And sometimes I like to bring the arm just inwards a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. Okay, just rotate these hands in a little bit. Let's make sure this looks right. I might have this back a little bit more. There we go. Yes. Okay, and we want the arms to react to gravity, right? They're these like limbs, right? They should, when this character steps down, that's where this arm should begin to fall back. Yes, there we go. Like so. And I like to have them moving on the same frames. It's good organization. Hello everyone, CGI Joe from the future. I'm actually dubbing over this part of the tutorial because what I recorded last night was literal dog shit. Like, even for my standards, it was a train wreck of a tutorial. Like, it was fucking atrocious. We don't want that, so let's go ahead and... Fucking Discord notifications, Jesus. So just unlock those and hit one of these. I'm gonna be fucking sick. Fucking Discord. Please, Discord, please, I'm begging you. I'm trying to record no. Please. No, please leave me alone, Discord. Leave me alone. No, go away, please. Stop. No, please. Okay. I think we're... So I'm dubbing over that, and I'm gonna re-record now that it's not 3 in the morning. So the arms are a lot more simple than doing the rest of the body. Just rotate the arms back and forth like they're on a pivot. I personally don't animate the fingers because you have to remember that this is gonna be looping with every 2 steps. So if you make the fingers animated, your character is going to be clenching their fingers every 2 seconds. Animate that outside of the cycle. And again, I would highly recommend you animate the arms in FK. It makes it so much easier than animating it in IK. Like I said at the beginning of the tutorial, you're going to get this weird like floppy arm syndrome whenever you animate walk cycles. If you're using IK arms, it just, like, there's not really much of a reason to animate the hands in IK in a walk cycle. And of course, you got the colors. Basically, you just really want to animate the colors bouncing up and down whenever you take a step. that gives your walk cycle more impact. The last thing I can say about the upper body and specifically the arms is to don't give the arms too much swing. Your arms should be moving in correlation with the lower body. Your hips move, your upper body twists in relation to the hips. So if your upper body's twisting more than your hips are twisting, it's gonna look weird. Now, there was one thing that wasn't absolute garbage in my scrapped part of this tutorial, and that is this right here. Because the moment something stops moving in CG, it looks like CG and it stops feeling alive, right? Unless it's a stylized animation like you see in Castlevania or fucking whatever a hotel has been hotel. Unless it's a stylized animation, this is the one thing that I stand by in that whole segment. In 2D animation, it works. In 3D animation, it does not work. And the reason I brought this up in this section of the tutorial is because when you are animating the arm, you're going to have a point where the arms swing forward and they have to hang in place. So you have to have the lower arm sort of follow through. So once your arm's finished its arc, your forearm's gonna rise up just a little bit before you pull it back. It sounds very complicated, but it's pretty simple. There's really no, magic solution I can give you. There's nothing that I can tell you that'll just make you better as an animator. You just have to practice.